everyone, and welcome to day 32 of our series Grace Changes Everything. I want to go straight into Romans chapter 7 verse 4. Therefore, my brethren, you were also made to die to the law through the body of Christ, that you might be joined to another, to him who was raised from the dead, and that we might bear fruit for God. You know, some people, they have terrible marriages. They're dominated and ruled over by their spouse. Their spouse tells them what to do every step of the way. They aren't even allowed an opinion sometimes. They aren't allowed to think for themselves. Just do what you're told, do what keeps me happy, and then we'll get along fine, is the basis of that marriage. It's kind of the order of the day. You're stuck with me and I rule over you is the mentality that goes along with it. Sadly, many people settle for that sort of marriage because they think that's what's expected of them. That's what marriage is about. Now, that idea of a bad marriage is what Paul uses as an illustration to deal with the faulty idea that the new born-again you is able to keep the law, and that the law is still of benefit to a born-again believer. Those ideas are wrong, and that's why he uses this illustration. You see, this illustration is a comparison of our old nature and our new born-again nature inside. The first husband that Paul talks about is a tyrant. He represents the old sin nature. That husband dominates the soul, that soul being the wife in his illustration. And the only way to be free of that old nature, the only way to be free of that dominance is through death. You see, the thing that ties that dominance and makes it inescapable is the law. And the only way to be set free from the law is through death. The only way out of that tyrant relationship is death. The death of the old sin nature and replacing it with something new. Now, when Paul starts to talk about the new marriage, that's a marriage of our soul to our new nature. And that new nature, I don't, it's really hard for us all to fully grasp it, but that new nature, with it we become the righteousness of God. That's just a stunning conclusion. Somehow Christ gave us a new nature in exchange for his old. And that new nature carries all of his righteousness. We literally rose again to new life the same way that Christ did. We aren't the same person after we believe as we were before we first believed. We have a new righteousness in us, the righteousness of Christ. It's not our righteousness, it's his. Here's just something amazing. Jesus didn't rise so that we could get to heaven alone. He rose again to somehow join us with him in his life. And he gives us his righteousness. Now, that is stunning. Paul puts it this way. He says, put on the new self, which in the likeness of God has been created in righteousness and true holiness. That new self is your spirit, your born-again spirit. And in your spirit, you're perfectly righteous, perfectly holy. It's Christ's righteousness, Christ in you. Not only is your spirit made new in this way, but it's also completely joined as one with Christ's spirit. 1 Corinthians 6:17 says this, the one who joins himself to the Lord is one spirit with him. Your heart is now totally given to another in marriage. You're one with Christ. You're married to Christ. And your new nature, your new husband, is Christ in you. And that's the basis of a good marriage. So, Father, I thank you. I'm so grateful that you didn't just stop at forgiving my sin. Instead, you gave me new life, a new way of living, a new way of thinking, a new nature to respond from. Thank you for giving me your spirit. Help me to be conscious of this truth and to live from it. Amen.